August 25th in the year 1415, during the 100 Years' War between England and France, that Henry V, the young King of England, led his forces to victory at the Battle of Agincourt in northern France. Two months before, Henry had crossed the English Channel with 11,000 men and laid siege to Harfleur in Normandy. After 5 weeks, the town surrendered, but Henry lost half his men to disease and battle casualties. He decided to march his army northeast to Calais, where he would meet the English fleet and return to England. At Agincourt, however, a vast French army of 20,000 men stood in his path, greatly outnumbering the exhausted English archers, knights, and men-at-arms. The battlefield lay on 1,000 yards of open ground between two woods, which prevented large-scale maneuvers and thus worked to Henry's advantage. At 11 a.m. on October 25th, the battle commenced. The English stood their ground as French knights, weighed down by their heavy armor, began a slow advance across the muddy battlefield. The French were met by a furious bombardment of artillery from the English archers, who wielded innovative longbows with a range of 250 yards. French cavalrymen tried and failed to overwhelm the English positions, but the archers were protected by a line of pointed stakes. As more and more French knights made their way onto the crowded battlefield, their mobility decreased further, and some lacked even the room to raise their arms and strike a blow. At that point, Henry ordered his lightly equipped archers to rush forward with swords and axes, and the Englishmen claimed victory over the French. Almost 6,000 Frenchmen continued their eternity during the Battle of Agincourt. Just over 400 Englishmen also continued their eternity. With odds greater than 3-1, Henry had won one of the great victories of military history. After a further conquest in France, Henry V was recognized in 1420 as heir to the French throne and the regent of France. He was at the height of his power, but continued his eternity just 2 years later. It was August 25th in the year 1854, in an event alternately described as one of the most heroic or disastrous episodes in British military history. Lord James Cardigan leads a charge of the Light Brigade cavalry against well-defended Russian artillery during the Crimean War. British were winning the Battle of Balaclava when Cardigan received his order to attack the Russians. His cavalry gallantly charged down the valley and were decimated by the heavy Russian guns, suffering 40% casualties. It was later revealed that the order was the result of confusion and was not given intentionally. Lord Cardigan, who survived the battle, was hailed as a national hero in Britain. It was October 25th in the year 1929, during the Teapot Dome scandal. Albert B. Fall, who served as Secretary of the Interior in President Warren G. Harding's cabinet, our nation's 29th president, is found guilty of accepting a bribe while in office. Albert B. Fall was the first individual to be convicted of a crime committed while a presidential cabinet member. As a member of President Harding's corruption-ridden cabinet in the early 1920s, Fall accepted a $100,000 interest-free loan from Edward Doheny of the Pan American Petroleum and Transport Company, who wanted Fall to grant his firm a valuable oil lease in the Elk Hills Naval Oil Reserve in California. The site, along with the Teapot Dome Naval Oil Reserve in Wyoming, had been previously transferred to the Department of the Interior on the urging of Fall, who evidently realized the personal gains he could achieve by leasing the land to private corporations. In October of 1923, the Senate Public Lands Committee launched an investigation that revealed not only the $100,000 bribe that Fall received from Doheny, but also that Harry Sinclair, president of Mammoth Oil, had given him some $300,000 in government bonds and cash in exchange for use of the Teapot Dome Oil Reserve in Wyoming. In 1927, the oil fields were restored to the U.S. government by a Supreme Court decision. 2 years later, Fall was convicted of bribery and sentenced to 1 year in prison and a fine of $100,000. Doheny escaped conviction, but Sinclair was imprisoned for contempt of Congress and jury tampering. All information divulged on this audio/video file can be verified on history.com.